In a nation becoming more and more divided, the president decides to lower himself by attacking a pair of MSNBC morning hosts on Twitter. The host responded in kind, proving there is no limit to how far down the leader of the free world or the participants of a free press can sink, reminding all of us yet again how disillusioned every side seems to be when it comes to the truth and morality. The Republicans in Congress haven't done any better. They've once again failed the Constitution and the American Republic. The healthcare system has gone from terrible to deplorable, as the party that was once founded on the principles of freedom and liberty has decided to embrace tyranny, deceit, and underhanded schemes they don't have to live under. Finally, Great Britain has decided to once again show us how despicable big government tyranny really is by sentencing a baby to death. When will the rest of the world wake up and decide to actually embrace small government solutions? The answer? They won't. All of these stories have one thing in common, and that is this. Very few actually care about freedom and responsibility anymore. Whether it's a politician, a political party, or a group of elitists, they will lie to your face and do the exact opposite of what they promised. And can you really blame them? It's easy to blame those in power, but it's harder to take responsibility and blame those who put them into power in the first place, especially if you were the one that did it, again and again and again. Will we ever restore common sense, natural law, nature's law, and nature's God again? Quite honestly, I doubt that. The answer doesn't lie in a group of people. It doesn't lie in the collective. It lies in only one thing: the free will of the individual to choose God over self and freedom over tyranny. My name is Blake Johnson, and the Blake Johnson program starts right now.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
In nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense.
Whether we are black or brown or white, we all bleed the same red blood of patriots.
And welcome everyone to the Blake Johnson program. It is so great to have you here with us on the very first episode of this show on Lanterns Media. And I have to say, it is a great honor to be here. I have been doing radio for a few years now, and I think this opportunity to do a show for a reputable organization known as Lanterns, a place that is very bound to the Constitution, to liberty, to freedom of thought, freedom of speech, and the furtherance of the principles that made America great in the first place. I think it's a great honor to be a part of them and to be doing this radio show for them as well. If you aren't familiar with me, I know there might be a few of you out there listening who have possibly heard me before, but probably not. I did a small radio show for I did it as a podcast, but before that, I did it for a radio station at a college I went to here in Missouri, and I did that for about a year and a half. And after that, I started doing my own podcast, and from there, I just eventually came on and found my way over to Lanterns as well. So I'm going to spend a few minutes here and tell you a little bit about myself so you're more familiar with what you've just gotten yourself into. I grew up in a small town of Mansfield, Missouri. I've born and raised here in Missouri. Love this great state, the Show Me State. I went to public school for a couple years, from kindergarten through the 3rd grade, and then after that, I was homeschooled from the 4th grade all the way through high school, and I loved every minute of it, honestly. You hear these stereotypical things thrown at homeschoolers, and it used to really bother me, but anymore it's just like, yeah, whatever. We've proven you wrong. Homeschoolers are not dumb. We don't hide in the corner, refusing to talk to people. We actually are engaged, and we are smart, and we do care. Now, that's not to toot my own personal horn, because there are plenty of people much smarter than me, but I'm very blessed for the opportunity that my parents put me through homeschooling, and that my mom taught me, and that she really got herself involved and did some hard things. I mean, it is not easy to homeschool your kid, especially when you've got two of them and you're homeschooling both of them. So it was a challenge for her, and man, she did a great job, a better job than I think a lot of other people would have been able to do, and still maintain their sanity in the end, especially when you're dealing with somebody like me. But yeah, so I did that, and then after homeschooling, went over to college. Actually went to College of the Ozarks out there just outside of Branson, Missouri, very close to the Arkansas-Missouri border. And this was close to 2 months ago, I graduated from C of O with a bachelor's degree in communication arts, specifically radio, broadcasting, and media production. And here I be. Now, in terms of radio, where did that come from? Well, it all really started when I was about 15 years old. This is kind of interesting. Normally when you're 15 or 16 years old, you are not exactly interested in politics. You're probably interested, especially if you're a guy, in video games or girls, maybe not quite there yet, but close. But you're typically not listening to politics and talk radio and things of that nature. But me, I was a different story. I wasn't into it at first, but I kind of found my way to it. I was watching Fox News one night, and I saw that they were promoting an upcoming show hosted by someone you may have heard of before, Glenn Beck. He's kind of a big deal. But he was starting a show on the Fox News channel, and he was talking about the news in a way that was different. He wasn't just your typical boring broadcaster. He was just saying, here's what happened in this state at this time, and here's how many people died. All right, Jenna, back to you. You know, it was more entertaining than that. It was someone that could actually connect with you on things that were important, things that we believe in as conservatives. And I thought, that is really fascinating. I mean, it's already kind of cool to see how you can communicate a message to a group of people and get that message out there. But it's even better when you can do it in an entertaining way, but in a consistently, constitutionally conservative, principled manner. And over the years, I began to really realize how unique that is for someone to do that. So not long after that, I stumbled onto talk radio. And I immediately fell in love with talk radio. This format of being able to communicate a message to people, but in a different way than television. Because in television, you have the lights, you have, this device here, this device there. You've got to go to this screen and go to that screen, and you've got only a certain amount of time where you can just, get a message out there. Whereas radio, you have more time to be able to connect with people. It really is a one-to-one communication, and I like that aspect of it, being able to connect with people and grow together. So that immediately drew my attention, and getting closer to graduation from high school, I found a college that had a radio program and a radio station, and that really appealed to me. I thought, okay, wow, I could, because, at a place like College of the Ozarks, you can work for your education. That's how you pay your student debt, or what would be normally student debt, off. So you graduate without any debt whatsoever by working on campus, for your tuition, for your education. So I did that, eventually got to the radio station on campus, 91.7 KCOZ. For any of you out there listening who are from that station, hello. Glad to have you with us. But I was a program director there for a couple of years, and I learned a lot from being in radio, and just the people who taught me, the people who really shared their experiences with me. Not so much because of the college. I didn't really learn a whole lot because of them, but I did learn a lot due to people who are already experienced in radio and were able to connect with me because of where I was at C of O and help me grow. So, I graduated from college and, I didn't have a show anymore, or at the time, and I thought, what am I going to do with my life? Well, what's going to happen? You ever feel that way? I mean, not just when you graduate from high school or college, but I mean, especially then. If you're like me, you graduate and it just all hits you very fast. I mean, I remember my last semester thinking, I've only got, a month or so. That's not going to go by fast. And it just went by fast. So I graduate and I have I have an idea of what I want to do, but there's nothing put in place yet. I don't have a radio job yet. I don't have a full-time job yet. I'm still trying to find something. And then Lanterns happened. And it was quite awesome how that whole thing turned out. I was, just scrolling through Facebook, and at one point, Jonathan Dunn reached out to me and said, hey, we're looking to hire someone to do a radio show on our website. Would you be interested? Absolutely. That was my first response. My second response was, how the heck am I going to afford to do that? Especially since I don't exactly live in the highly populated metropolitan area of St. Louis, Missouri, or anywhere close to that size. I live in a small town, just outside of a small town here in southern Missouri. And I don't have high-speed, unlimited internet. Well, come to find out, you can still do a good show. You can still find a way to do a show and afford the equipment and so on and so forth. So I did all that, got it all set up, and lo and behold, here I be. So, that's a bit of just a quick crash course into who I am. You'll get to know me as the weeks come and go. And this show is going to air every Monday on 9 a.m. on Lanterns, and then it'll be on demand on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, and those platforms. I think Spreaker also would be on Spreaker. And I know a lot of people use that as well. So you'll get to know me, you'll get to know who I am, what I'm about as we go forward. I don't want to spend the entire show talking about myself. But I want to divert from this and talk to you about what is this show going to be about? What are we going to accomplish together? What can you expect to find when you tune in to this show? Is it just going to be someone who thinks so highly of himself that he can't stand to take 2 minutes out of his time to not talk about himself? Okay. Or are you going to find someone who wants to talk about the everlasting principles of freedom, small government, and liberty? These things, I believe, are incredibly important to the preservation of our republic, the American Republic. I think for too long, we as a society have strayed from that vision. We have strayed from the principles of living within your means, of living within the foundation of small government, and the truths of the Declaration of Independence, of the American Constitution, of the Bill of Rights. I think in large part we have stranded too far away from that line of holding these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights that nobody can take away from you. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, not just the pursuit of an emotion or the pursuit of a feeling, but the pursuit of a state of existence, being able to exist outside of the tyranny of big government. We have strayed too far from that. And quite honestly, there are too many people out there who don't really seem to care. Or they pretend to care, but in fact they care more about their ratings. They care more about how many people are listening to their stupid show when they're doing the same thing day in and day out, and it's more about them and not about the cause. It's more about ratings and power and money. and not so much about consistency and intellectual honesty. One of the things that really stood out to me that I've been thinking about a lot in the past couple of weeks preparing for the show is a conversation I had with Dylan Lyles, who obviously he hosts his own program here on Lanterns, and he's one of the leaders on Lanterns. We were talking about the vision and where I wanted to take the show, what they were looking for when it comes to content, and he mentioned intellectual honesty, and that really stood out to me because I think too often we are without intellectual honesty. And when I say we, I mean people out there in the media, people in government, people in schools and education, people just in your circle of friends aren't being intellectually honest. They may have condemned a stimulus bill that was passed under the Obama administration, but now they praise one that could pass in the Trump administration. Or maybe they supported this policy at that point, but now they don't support it. Or they didn't support this policy before because a different party was in charge, but now they support it. Now it's all of a sudden a great idea. That really bothers me. I cannot stand consistent dishonesty, if you could call it that. I cannot stand people who lie and lie and lie, and they do not care. They take advantage of you every single day, and it doesn't seem to bother them. It also bothers me when the people who are being taken advantage of continue to elect those same people over and over and over again. They don't learn their lesson. You can't just play the victim card. You've got to take responsibility for your own actions, wise up, and learn from your mistakes. And too often, people are not doing that. One of the things that really disgusted me this past 6 months into late last year was seeing people in my own generation and people that you would think would be sensible enough to use the platform that they were given wisely, squandered it for ratings and for popularity. People like Tommy Lahren, who used to be with The Blaze. People like Milo Yiannopoulos, who used to be with Breitbart. People like them and more, who clearly made themselves more about throwing bombs and dividing rather than telling the truth and still dividing. Because here's the dirty little secret that no one wants to tell you. We can talk about coming together all we want to, but in reality, it's not going to happen. As long as you're telling the truth, there will be division. Severe, deep division. Because there is sin in this world. But quite frankly, too many people refuse to acknowledge that. And then I had problems with people like Tommy and Milo and others for, on one hand, saying, hey, you know what? In the case of Tommy, abortion is awful and you dirty baby killers, you. And then, a few months later, going on The View and saying, anyone who disagrees with pro-choice is a hypocrite, essentially. To me, that's wrong. It's stupid. You can't do that. And then call yourself a conservative. It also bothers me when people who claim to be conservatives, claim to be Christians, clearly don't live up to the standards that they claim to support. And I'm not talking about perfection. I stumble. I tell you what, of all the people out there in this world, I feel like I'm one of the worst when it comes to screwing up and making mistakes. I just feel that way. I think everyone feels that way about themselves. We want to be perfect, but we can't be. We're not. But there has to be some journey, some level of consistency when it comes to living by your principles. And I can't stand it anymore. Looking out there in this world, millions of people listening to a host or watching a television show, when the host clearly is being dishonest with his audience, and clearly isn't using intellectual honesty in the things that they say. So this show is going to take a different course of action. We're actually going to do the radical thing and speak our mind, and then try our very darndest to live by the very things that we say. And I know that seems radical, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about news. We're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about faith. We're going to talk about the Constitution and philosophy and history and government and things of that nature. We're going to have fun on this show. We're going to talk about movies. We're going to talk about TV shows, good and terrible. We're going to talk about the controversial opinions that I have towards Star Wars, things of that nature. Just because we can have a good time, we can be conservative and still be cool. So that's what we're going to do, and I'm very excited for the opportunity. So, I'm going to take a quick break and come back and delve into some news and anything else that we can find out there that might interest you. This on the Blake Johnson program. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone, to the Blake Johnson program. Great to have you here with us today here on Lanterns Media. If you're listening to us on lanterns.buzz, we really do appreciate that. We do have so many great writers and thinkers out there who contribute to the Lanterns website. So if you would, go ahead and take a look at that website and promote the stories, share the content. I know you'll get a lot out of it. Many great conservative constitutional thinkers out there. Or if you're listening to us on Spreaker.com, we very much welcome you there as well. We love Spreaker. We love iTunes and SoundCloud, Stitcher, all those great platforms that you can listen to us on. It is truly a fun time to be alive doing radio and being able to share with each other the news and share with like-minded people about stories that you and I care about. Now, I do believe it's my first show, and I already have to make a correction. I think I said in my last segment that the show is on in the morning, Monday mornings. No, it's actually not, and you're pretty aware of that by now because it's not morning, it's evening. It's every Monday evening. Almost said it again. Every Monday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern. I think the reason I said that is because I'm so used to having a morning show that going from a morning to an evening show kind of did something with my head. So every Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern time on lanterns.buzz, lanterns.buzz. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump right into the meat and potatoes of the show. And I say meat and potatoes not just because it's a saying, but because I love meat and potatoes. Yes, I very much do. But I'm not too fond of this particular story. I'm a bit mixed on it, as a matter of fact, and it has to do with President Trump and his continuous attacks on the mainstream press. Now, the reason I say I'm mixed on the way I feel about this is because in some ways I appreciate Donald Trump's attacks on the media because, quite frankly, it's about freaking time the President of the United States stood up for himself and refused to go along with the continuous lies against his administration. And you just look at it, the way the media is going after Trump is just disgusting, quite frankly. It's not just disagreeing with an opinion or disagreeing with a policy, because I got news for you. I disagree with Donald Trump on many things. But it's the way they do it. They're not operating as an honest press. They're not operating as people who care about journalism, as people who care about objective truth. They're operating as shills for the Democratic Party and as shills for secular progressivism. And yet they try to coat it up with, oh, we're the honest press. No, you're really not. I think the president is corrent when he refers to CNN and MSNBC is fake news. But at the same time, is there a line that he's crossed? And I think he has. In some ways, I think Donald Trump has crossed some lines here. Let me explain. First of all, as you're probably aware, about midway last week, he launched an attack on MSNBC's morning hosts Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. Now, no one knows who those two people are. Unless you're fully informed and you are always listening to talk radio, conservative talk radio, and you're just, a political junkie like me, you don't know who Joe Scarborough or Mika Brzezinski is, much less almost any of the personalities over at MSNBC, because nobody watches MSNBC, okay? That's why. No one watches them. But, nevertheless, Trump launched an attack, and I'm not even 100% sure who started it. Of course, the administration is saying that the press started it. They're probably right. But at the same time, does it really matter? Are we 5 years old? Really? Are we going to have this conversation? Who started it? Doesn't matter who started it. The question is, should it be happening now? Should it keep going? And the first major tweet that got the attention of everybody else was when Trump referred to Mika's facelift and her fiance. I don't think they're married yet, Joe and Mika. I don't think they're married yet. Maybe they are. But anyway, the couple, shall we say, wanting to stay the night or stay over at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's place, and him saying no because Mika, her face was bleeding due to her facelift. That's what Trump tweeted out. And he was mocking them because of the way that they were mocking him, and the way that they were going after his credibility and going after him personally. And, of course, the left-wing media was just in a frenzy. They couldn't believe that the President of the United States would launch an attack against two poor journalists. They couldn't believe it. They'd never seen this before because there's never been an administration that has been unfair to the press. Oh, no. Well, except for the last administration. But maybe I should digress, because they have short-term memory loss, apparently. But nevertheless, the left-wing media was outraged by it. And some on the right were outraged by it. And quite honestly, I wasn't fond of it either. Did I think his tweet was sexist? No, I don't think Trump's tweet about Mika's face was sexist, okay? You see women making those same comments about each other, okay? And yet no one says anything about them. So, give me a break, okay? So I don't think that tweet was sexist, but was it inappropriate? Yeah, I think in a way it was. I mean, why is the president, first of all, wasting his time? Why is he doing that? But nevertheless, so you have that happening. And then over the weekend, it continues. Trump tweets out, I believe it was Saturday, Crazy Joe Scarborough and Dumb as a Rock Mika are not bad people, but their low-rated show is dominated by their NBC's bosses. Too bad. And then, let's see, a little earlier that morning he said, word is that Greta Van Susteren, who was just fired by MSNBC. She went from Fox News to MSNBC, and she wasn't there for very long at all. But he says, word is that she was let go by her out-of-control bosses at NBC and Comcast because she refused to go along with Trump hate. And it just goes on and on and on. And it really culminated in this latest story of him tweeting out early Sunday morning. He tweeted out a superimposed video, an old video of Trump at the WWE match, the one in which he took down a fighter. He superimposed a logo of CNN over the fighter that he beat up, basically implying that he is beating up the press. And then he tweets out, hashtag FNN, or Fraud News Network, or Fraud News CNN. And that's gone viral. A lot of people are paying attention to that. And CNN then released a statement following that tweet saying, "It is a sad day when the President of the United States encourages violence against reporters." Clearly, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who, I guess, what is her official role anyway? I think she's pretty much, she's like the press speaker, whatever that role is, with Sean Spicer. But they're like, yeah, clearly Sarah Huckabee Sanders lied when she said the president had never done so. Instead of preparing for his overseas trip, his first meeting with Vladimir Putin, dealing with North Korea and working on his healthcare bill, he is instead involved in juvenile behavior far below the dignity of his office. We will keep doing our jobs. He should start doing his. I look at this, I'm thinking, you guys, both sides, there's no winning here. Both sides are at fault. Trump is at fault for this continuous personal attack against the press. Now, personally, I don't have any issue with him referring to them as fake news, because they are fake news. They are spreading fake news. So I don't have any problem with him attacking the press for when they get it wrong. But the personal attacks against a TV personality and their looks, I just don't think that's necessary. You can prove your point without sinking to that level. You really can. And Trump is the president of the United States. He's a celebrity. He's an entertainer. He knows how to get people's attention. He doesn't have to attack people personally, but he does it anyway because it does give him, in some sense, more reaction, and he loves that. He loves that. Especially since he is so sensitive to criticism, he can't handle it, so the more attention he can get attacking the other side, the better off he feels. But then, at the same time, CNN, they're a joke, because they really are. They really are fake news, in a sense, because I'm going to play this video, you might have heard it before, of the CNN producer, John Bonifield, admitting that the Russia-Trump story that's been being pushed out hardcore by CNN, MSNBC, NBC, and others is mostly fake news. Now, there is a part of this video that I didn't hear anybody play yet, and I want to play it. And it's towards the end of the video, or the end of the section that I picked out. But listen to this. If you haven't heard this yet, this is so eye-opening. Here it is.
So you believe like the Russia thing's a little crazy, right?
Even if Russia was trying to swing an election, we try to swing their elections. We're in our CIA and doing it all the time. Like, we're out there trying to manipulate governments. Like,
I haven't seen any good evidence to show that the president committed a crime. I know a lot of people don't like him and they like to see him get kicked out of office.
That's what it seems like they're pushing.
But that's a lot different than that he actually did something that can get him kicked out of office.
Then why is CNN constantly like Russia this, Russia that?
because it's ratings.
Because it's ratings?
Our ratings are incredible right now.
Because of...
So, my boss, I shouldn't say this, my boss a couple days yesterday, we were having a discussion about this dental shoot, and he's like, I just want you to know what we're up against here. And he goes, just to give you some context, President Trump pulled out of the climate accords, and for a day and a half we covered the climate accords, and the CEO of CNN said in our internal meeting, he said, good job everybody covering the climate accords, but we're done with it, let's get back to Russia.
The CEO?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So even the climate accords, he was like, okay, a day or so, but we're moving back to Russia.
Okay, so they're admitting now fake news. This is absolutely false, and they are purposely putting this up just for ratings. That's all it is. But here is the most important part of the clip that I have heard as of yet, and I haven't heard anybody else play this clip. Here's what he said, what this producer said when he was talking about ethics. Listen to this, courtesy of The Onion.
I mean, I understand it's all ratings, right?
Oh, it's a business. It's a business. People are like, the media has like an ethical... But all the nice, cutesy little ethics that used to get talked about in journalism school, you're just like, that's adorable. That's adorable. Yeah, this is a business.
This is a business. It's a business. And that, my friends, is the heart of the story. Both sides, neither side, cares about the ethics. They don't care about taking personal responsibility for anything. Trump isn't the guy who is going to be George Washington. He is not going to be a revered man of integrity by a lot of people. Likewise, CNN is no longer going to go down as a credible news source because of things like this. Unless they change management, I don't see them ever getting their credibility back. Because they're all about the money. They're all about the power. They're all about the ratings. They don't care about giving you the news. It's not about you. Remember when news used to serve you? It used to give information to you to keep you informed and ultimately to help better society. The press isn't that way anymore. That's not what they're concerned about. They're concerned about themselves because they know you have the power to put them out of business. Look at CNN. Look at them. Look at MSNBC. Look at Fox News even. Those are old-fashioned forms of media. You don't have to sit in front of a TV anymore on Dish Network, watching Dish Network or DirecTV or any of those platforms for news. You can go online. You can go to Facebook even and see articles that are shared from other websites, and you can create your own news even. Nowadays, you don't need a group, a film crew to go out to a location and shoot a video and put it up online or put it up on the news. Nowadays, you just get your iPhone out and record it yourself because you're right there. And then you can put it on Twitter and people will go watch it. And I can't tell you how many news stories have gone viral because of things like that. So you do have the power because of technology to put them out of business. And they're afraid of that. Many of them are afraid of that. So what did they do? Well, they say, screw you then. We're going to put as much distrust as we possibly can into this president, into the Republican Party, into anyone who opposes us. And we're going to make it about us. They're desperate. They're desperate for attention. And you know what? In some ways, he's right. Their ratings are phenomenal right now. Fox News being beaten by CNN and MSNBC in some cases, in some form or fashion. Because people like division. They like it when this president is attacked. So many people do not care about objective truth anymore, intellectual honesty, things that we talked about in the previous segment. They don't care about that. So you and I are here left to pick up the pieces and try to figure out, where do we go from here? I got news for you. I don't want any part of that. And I know you don't either. So we will press on. We will fight against this machine, and we will create our own culture of truth and integrity. And we will shine the light on those, even if it is someone supposedly on our own side, who is doing something that is very much something that we should stand against. We will stand, and we will speak truth. I've got more, plenty more, headed your way here on the Blake Johnson program. Don't go anywhere, back in just a few moments. Welcome back, everyone, to the Blake Johnson program here on the Lanterns Radio Network, an organization that actually believes in allowing its hosts to have an opinion. That is such a novel concept, and a change of pace for me. But in all seriousness, it is so great to be here with you. We only have, about 15 or so minutes left on the show. It's gone by so fast, and I am ready for more, Before we move on, I just want to give a shout out and a thank you to the fellows over at the Defenders of American Exceptionalism program hosted by Dylan Lyles and Stephen Airy Jr. They had me on their program last week, and it was for an interview promoting the show and everything. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed talking to them. Those guys are pretty funny and very, very good on the radio. And so yeah, it was a privilege to be on the show with them. Let's see here. We still got a few more moments of our time here. I want to delve in quickly to this story about a baby being condemned to die by socialized medicine. And this really goes to the heart of what is wrong with big government, with tyranny, with socialized medicine, and with the government getting involved in your healthcare choices. You may already be familiar with this story, but it is very interesting. So what happened was, this baby by the name of Charlie Gard, he was born in October with a disease referred to as MDDS, and it's basically left him crippled, as well as suffering with brain damage. Now, the parents have been trying to get him over to America. They're from Great Britain, I believe, and they're trying to get him over to America to be examined by American doctors to see if there's any hope of being able to save their son's life. But of course, the National Health Service over in Great Britain denied them that option. In fact, they went further than that. They sentenced the baby boy to die, and they're not even allowing the parents to have custody of the child, to even at the very least be able to spend the last remaining however many weeks or months left with their son. Not even allowing that. Instead, they're going to keep the baby away from the parents and take it off life support to let them die. Because right now the baby depends on a ventilator to keep himself alive. But they're going to get rid of that ventilator and just let the baby die because it's not worth saving. Not worth saving. It is not worth saving. Now I want to read to you a bit of this piece from the Washington Examiner, a wonderful piece that I believe sums all of it up pretty perfectly. It says, American liberals often gaze across the Atlantic with admiration, viewing Europe as the model for our future. They covet Europe's rail systems, green energy subsidies, social liberalism, secularism, welfare states, and government-run healthcare. As Washington rings with cries that a Republican health reform bill would kill hundreds of thousands of people, consider the desperately sad tale of Charlie Gard, a baby boy sentenced to die by Britain's National Health Service. And it goes on to talk about what I just mentioned about his situation and the fact that the parents are being denied the option to bring the baby over here, even though they have raised the money to be able to do it. They have the money raised. They set up a fundraiser, I believe, and people donated, and they have the money to come here to do that. but they're being denied. And it says this whole situation is the apotheosis of big government. The British state has become the alpha and the omega. It has nationalized a child and implicitly other children whom it might one day cut off from the love and care of their parents. This is the logical conclusion of a single-payer public health system, a government deciding who is allowed to fight for his life, or his child's life, and who is not. The quote-unquote threat of fascism is discussed quite a bit these days, but a president's authoritarian personality and policy preferences aren't the fascist threat in Europe and America. The threat comes instead from experts and doctors deciding whose life is worth saving and which long shots are worth taking. He who pays the piper calls the tune. And later on in the piece it says, the victims will be those very people whom government-run healthcare is supposed to help. It will be those with least influence over the central power. It will be helpless people like Charlie Gard. A government big enough to cover all your healthcare expenses is one big enough to decide who lives and dies. And again, that is from the Washington Examiner, published on June 30th, just a couple of days ago. Folks, that's what's going on here. That is the absolute fact, the absolute truth, that, quite frankly, too few people are willing to talk about. And it seems like more and more on our side, if you would call the Republican Party our side. I don't personally, because I'm not a Republican. But you see Republicans starting to fight for a more government-run healthcare system. People like Ted Cruz and Mike Lee, Rand Paul, Ron Johnson, and others are in the minority now. They're in the minority of people who think that the best option for healthcare, the one who is best qualified to decide what kind of health care services that they want is you. You. But no one's talking about you, are they? No. They're talking about themselves. They're talking about the ways that government needs to be involved in your life every single day. Forget about you and choices. No, it's about them, whether it's the Republicans in power or the Democrats in power. It's all about what do we as a government decide should be the best option for you, even though we don't even know who you are, nor care, quite frankly. Now, today's July 3rd, the day before our nationally recognized Independence Day. And this has been something I've been thinking about a lot. The idea of independence. What does it mean to really be independent? Are we independent anymore? Do we even have the right to lay claim to being independent anymore? Here's what I mean by that. If we're really truly independent, I mean, what kind of a nation racks up over $20 trillion in debt and claims to be free? And I'm not even talking about the unfunded liabilities, which is well over $100 trillion. But we owe money to people, to countries. And we're free? How, exactly? And we're rich? How? How are we rich? When you think about it in everyday terms, let's say, you probably graduated college. You went to college. Maybe you didn't, but maybe you did. Maybe it's not college. Maybe it's, some other form of debt that you have. You have debt. That means you owe something to somebody else. So, in a sense, they own you. Or at least some part of you. They don't own your soul or anything like that. But they own some aspect of your life. Be it financial. And until you pay that debt off, you're never truly free. Never truly free. Now, I'm not saying that debt in of itself is bad. It's not. Everyone has debt. Everyone is going to get debt at some point. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. But the point is, you try to pay that debt off. You don't keep racking up more and more and more. But that's what our government is doing. They're racking up more and more debt. They don't care about paying any of it off. Just keep spending. Just keep spending. Instead of just keep swimming. It's just keep spending. Just keep spending. But that's what they're doing. So are we really free? Look at our education system and how destroyed it's become, how corrupted it's become with indoctrination, with history and revisionism, and evolution being taught as scientific fact, and global warming and climate change being taught as scientific fact. There's nothing at all that can ever disprove global warming. Oh no, not at all. And if you disagree with them, then oh my goodness, so evil. Can't allow that. So whether it be our debt, our education system, or more importantly, our morality. Look at our state of morality. I think America and Americans, many Americans, are slaves to sin. We are not a righteous people. We're not behaving like it in many aspects. Fewer and fewer people out there really truly care about Christian principles. And I don't care what anyone else tells you. I really don't. Our nation was founded upon Judeo-Christian principles. Plain, pure, and simple. There is no disputing that. Our founding fathers were not deists. They were not atheists. They believed in a Judeo-Christian foundation for our country. I'm sorry, but you don't get a secular society from the line in the Declaration that says, and with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. That doesn't really sound like a country that was founded by godless heathens. I'm sorry, but that just doesn't sound like that to me. But I was thinking, what does it really mean to be free? To be free means, in my case, the way I believe, being free in Christ, believing in Christ, and not holding up yourself or the state as God. Because I gotta tell you something, if we're God, we're screwed. Because we screw things up all the freaking time. And so does the state. But I was also thinking about it in this sense. Over the weekend, I was able to go to a cookout, family cookout, with the extended Johnson family, and it was a really good time. Like, it feels like it's been too long since we last had a get together. We used to do that all the time. And that happens to a lot of families. You grow apart, you move away, things happen, that's just the way it is, unfortunately. But it's always good when you can come together sometime. So we did. And it was so much fun. Just being able to engage with people and connect. And to me, one of the best examples of freedom is family. It really is. Not everyone has a great family. But not everyone has great friends either. And friends come and go all the time. But family lasts forever. Family is eternal. Whether it be your blood kin or your Christian family, everyone has a family of some sort. Who do you surround yourselves with? Who are the people that are closest to you? To me, that defines whether or not you are free. So anyway, that's going to do it for the show today. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to the Blake Johnson program. It's been so much fun being able to do the show again, being able to do radio again, and I hope you've gotten something out of this broadcast. We'll see you back here next week, same time, same place, Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can also check us out on Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, and Stitcher as well, on all those platforms. My name's Blake Johnson. Have yourself a great week, everyone. Take care, and God bless.